Olá, bem-vindos e bem-vindas, um bom dia a todos, eu sou Denise Barbosa e estamos aqui mais uma vez para o McKinsey Talks. McKinsey Talks já se consolidou como um espaço para conversas ao vivo com os maiores experts do mundo sobre temas relevantes para a agenda de negócios. E hoje nós vamos fazer uma sessão sobre como a transformação para a cloud tem gerado oportunidades e impacto para negócios e tecnologia. We have here with us today, Leandro Santos and Moulden. Good morning. Can you please introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about your experience in cloud transformation, please?
Thank you, Denise. It's great to be here with you. I am Leandro Santos. I'm a senior partner with McKinsey & Company. I'm based in Atlanta, in North America, originally from Brazil. So happy to insert some of that Brazilian accent as we go along. But I'm based in Atlanta. I co-lead our Cloud by McKinsey practice and our infrastructure and cyber practices, which is where we do a lot of the work with our clients in their cloud transformations. So very glad to be here with you and be talking to some of our Brazilian friends.
And I'm Justin Moulden, Associate Partner and Senior Solution Lead in the Cloud by McKinsey practice. So I work with Leandro and the team across multiple industries, leading cloud transformations, helping our clients with some of their most complex, most difficult transformations. I come from the industry side of the equation, led infrastructure and operations and cloud and DevOps transformations for multiple Fortune 500 companies. So happy to be doing that today for McKinsey's clients, as well as speaking with you and the team today.
Oh, thank you very much. Leandro, I'm going to start with you. Cloud is a buzzword that is not quite understood by all the clients. How would you define a cloud transformation and why it's generating so much traction in the business world today?
It's a great question, Denise. Cloud is very much a technology. It's very much a technology and a technology topic. But what is really different between cloud and previous technology chains and technology that have been rolled out is that cloud fundamentally changed the paradigm on how technology is made available to the business and to the internal IT teams. In the past, it used to be that you needed to buy a bunch of servers, you need to figure out a data center where you'd host them, you then need to buy and configure a bunch of software to put on that data center, tailor it to what the company needed to do to then be able to suit the business needs. That used to have a very long lead time, and it was always very limited in terms of what capabilities you're able to offer. If you hadn't planned to deploy a certain capability or make a certain capability available, by the time that need came about, it meant you usually needed to go and buy additional servers, hope that you had space on that data center to put those there, buy additional software, learn and configure how to use them, and make it available. The difference with cloud is that all of that infrastructure, all of the data centers, the servers, are already made available to everybody by the cloud service providers. And what I find to be most transformative is that it's not just the infrastructure, but all of the software that some of the leading technology providers in the globe have used is immediately available, and all of it available to you as the needs arise. So if you didn't expect that you needed, for example, machine learning type of solution in your business application, the moment you do, that's already available to you in the cloud. And not just a run-of-the-mill and average type of capability, but what some of the best of the, someone like Amazon or Microsoft or Google or IBM or whoever, what they have created and what they use on their own capabilities, that's all available to you. So what's really transformative about cloud and why it's gaining so much traction is the ability to impact business outcome and really drive business value. We have actually conducted a study along with McKinsey Global Institute recently that talks about some of the ways that cloud can generate value for the business. And what we have found is if you look at just the EBITDA margins for some of the Fortune 500 companies with a 15-year horizon, 10 to 15-year horizon, it has the potential to generate about $1 trillion of business value to them. Some of it is going to be generated in form of IT efficiency. So if you think of what we call rejuvenate, so how can you optimize the cost of IT? Because you can automate more things, because you have companies that have scale to deploy and manage those infrastructures, as well as develop some of that, those services and the new technology and keep up with it. Some of it is going to be around risk reduction. Again, those providers of technology are able to invest in cybersecurity and protection in ways that most enterprise could not even dream of. The ability to digitize some of the core IT operations themselves, so automate a lot of what IT needed to do, because infrastructure essentially becomes software at this point. So that allows you to just automate and improve the way you operate IT. But what I, again, find more exciting, even more exciting, is that twice as much value is there to be had on the business side in ways that technology now can enable the business to innovate. That could be in ways of driving additional growth in the business side to enabling some of those enhanced use cases, and we'll talk about some of them today. It could be around accelerating product development. There is a very meaningful difference in terms of the lead time to deploy technology, to change technology, to respond to changing business needs when you're doing it on the cloud versus, again, on the old model that I described earlier. Or whether it's the ability to scale, like you might be able to launch a new service that you didn't know if it was going to take off or not. When you are operating and running that on the cloud, you're able to scale to as big as it needs to get, as fast as it needs to. Again, something that was virtually impossible to do, or at least extremely hard to do in a cost-effective way before. And then there is a third dimension that we see also extremely exciting, that's harder to quantify or to put a number on, but cloud ultimately enables traditional enterprise to pioneer and to really test new business models that are enabled by some of this technology that, again, up until recently, was only available to some of the leading companies in the Valley, right, in the Silicon Valley. So because of all of that is why we are seeing it really be not just a technology, but a technology plus, or a technology-driven business transformation is the way I would describe it.
So just to add on there, I want to give a few quick examples of where we've seen these types of transformations occur. So early in our history, worked with a very large consumer packaged goods company who had a need to divest itself of data centers. This is kind of a classic infrastructure-focused play for cloud here. Tremendous OpEx reduction and simplification benefits to be had there in that sort of rejuvenation space. By moving to the cloud, migrating existing applications and sunsetting legacy ones, very often organizations can achieve very significant cost takeouts, which is great. And it's really great for the bottom line and helping to streamline IT. But as we move forward into more of these innovative types of use cases, a good example of that is, a payments processor that we've worked with, able to really kind of take over and capture market share in their space by utilizing cloud technology scalability, the ability to rapidly handle transaction processing workloads that previously took days or at least hours in the past, really able to push those capabilities out into the cloud and utilize the cloud service providers' massive scalability, high performance and availability to tackle those new workloads. And then, as we've grown and our clients have grown, recently worked with a global analytics processing company in the consumer credit space to help to understand and gain insights to existing data and systems, reduce their ability or their cost rather, and the time required to bring new services and products to the marketplace and really change the way that consumers think about credit reporting and management of their own credit journey. So just a few examples of use cases that we have seen across all of these dimensions. Each is very important in its own right, but as we drive maturity and adoption further to the right, we start to see that true unlock of new capabilities that redefines markets and redefines people's expectations of what can be done with technology.
Thank you, Justin. Those are some good examples indeed. But what about data security in the cloud? Is cloud yet secure enough to host financial services transactions, Justin?
Yeah, certainly been the case in the past. There's been a lot of sort of spectacular and well-publicized breaches and problems that people have had on the cloud, and losing access to data, kind of embarrassing exposure of personal data, things like that. Really what that comes down to is an inability or not sufficiently utilizing cloud technology in the right way. The reality is cloud and its automation capabilities and observability characteristics make it far more secureable. The important factor is that you utilize those capabilities in the right way. Something like 85–90% of those breaches that you see really come down to misconfiguration. In reality, the level of clarity, when properly implemented on an end-to-end basis, allows us to understand not just on a point in time or sort of audit basis whether or not we're secure, but on an ongoing and continuous basis prior to ever even deploying data and workloads into the environment in the first place.
Yeah, I think those are great examples, and that's what we see very consistently. The vast majority of the breaches, like Justin said, are due to misconfiguration and how that's being used in the cloud.
Leandro, cloud seems to be now a very mature technology, but we see a number of cloud transformation struggling to get the expected results. Why?
That's very much true, and I think that while it is mature, it's still maturing. What we have found is that in some estimates, as many as 70% of cloud programs fail in one way or another. The three most common aspects or ways that we have found is either the program installs, the impact is not delivered, or actually it ends up costing more than what was expected, or the IT costs themselves go up. The reason for the program install and delay oftentimes have to do with their ability to mobilize the organization and to bring in the talent and to find the right mechanism on how to go about doing the program. This is, at the end of the day, a very different capability that's required from the organization. Like Justin talked about some of the security breaches, that applies to other ways on how software is developed and how infrastructure is deployed. So it requires an ecosystem of new partners that you need to work with, not just the cloud service providers, but others that are bringing different areas of expertise, whether it's to train your people in cloud, to bring in new skills, to advise you on the path that it needs to take. And that's something that not everybody plans for or don't always have the right set of partners to go through that journey. And that then ends up with some failures early on, that then creates a skepticism within the organization and just slows everything down. So that's been one failure mode that we've seen fairly consistently. The second one is around the business impact not realized. Like I said earlier, yes, there are IT savings to be had, and we do believe that cloud can be a more effective way of running IT infrastructure and IT overall, but the real benefit will come from that business enablement. And that requires a partnership between technology and the business. And it also requires for the business to be willing to reinvent itself on how it does things. And it could be small things, as in how do I run a journey for a certain process internally, but it could also be big things in terms of which services I bring to market. So those programs that tend to focus strictly on cost savings within infrastructure, we found that tend to struggle more. In some cases, that's sufficient to make the business case. And a lot of times it's not. And you really need to look at what is going to be the additional benefit outside of infrastructure within the overall IT operations, but then most importantly on the business side. So that's a second failure mode. And then a third one is cloud. An important change in terms of the paradigm, again, on cloud is that in traditional IT, you lease that data center, you can build that data center, you buy those servers, you buy the software, and you know upfront how much it is that you're spending on each one. And then it's about capitalizing and depreciating that over time. So it's very predictable in terms of what you're going to spend. It's fixed. It takes a lot of that upfront investment, but it's predictable once you get over that hurdle. With cloud, a lot of these models are pay as you go. So the way I described it, capabilities are available and you can tap into them as needs arise. That also means that you pay for it. So if you don't have the right awareness on what the cloud costs, and if you don't have the right governance internally and transparency to the IT team, to the technology team, as well as to the business, and you're making those decisions on a true ROI basis, like, is it worth accessing that new machine learning capability because of the benefits it's going to create to the business? it's very easy that engineers will be carried away and will be using all of this new technology and will be allocating resource in a less than efficient way. And so it will end up costing more. Again, same way that cloud is more securitable, meaning you can make it more secure than traditional. Cloud can be more cost effective if done right. But if not done right, then you can have runaway costs, as several companies have experienced.
Justin, for companies that have already started their cloud journeys and are facing challenges, what can they do successfully scale this transformation?
Yeah, great question. It is certainly the case that just about everybody these days is doing something on the cloud, right? And very often, you know, there's a tacit agreement or understanding that yes, we have a cloud strategy. But when we see them fail, it tends to be that the strategy itself has not necessarily achieved the right breadth or business context that's needed. So very often what we see, to Leandro's prior point, lots of cloud provisions, not a lot of business impact. So really what we advocate and what we very often help our clients to do is really kind of step back and look at, okay, in the broad context of what's needed, not just from a technical perspective, but also from an overall operating model. What are the impacts to how I do business as an IT organization? What are the right security and risk management postures, regulatory compliance needs, et cetera, that to be met in order to ensure that things rapidly and safely transition into production and actually begin to realize that business value? And then overall, what are the economics? How do I think about managing the consumption of cloud resources, the staffing, the enablement, ensuring that I'm getting good ROI on that, and being able to do that in a way that is iterative, that rapidly achieves value without seeking to boil the ocean, is really kind of how we help our clients to reset their cloud programs, fill in the gaps, understand where are the missing pieces, and reorient expectations to more optimally position them towards success.
And Leandro, is the cloud transformation a matter of technology teams only?
Well, if you've been paying attention so far, you know, no. Denise, what I mean by that is obviously it does need to be a partnership between the technology teams and the business, with also three very important supporting functions in finance, HR, and procurement or vendor management. Between the business and IT, in terms of understanding what is the value that you're ultimately going to be releasing with cloud, what is the impact you're going to be creating, and finding those use cases, like Justin said, that allows you to put some points on the board early on and then iterate on building your capabilities and increasing the impact that you're delivering. So that does take a sound strategy up front, and it's a strategy in terms of how you're using cloud, how you're building your capabilities, but also what parts of the business you are engaging in, what you are creating and delivering to the business. Finding a counterpart on the business side that is really willing and sees the value and is willing to work with the technology team as that journey unfolds, because it will be a learning journey and it will require adjustments on both sides. Finance plays an extremely important role because oftentimes cloud will actually lead to additional costs on the IT side because in order to release some benefits on the business side. So making sure that the total financial impact is being taken into account and not just that we're going to be expecting lower IT costs and that's it. So as you work through on both sides of that equation, on the business benefit and on the impact in IT, that finance is informing and is being informed of those changes. I talked about the change from capital expenditure towards an operating expense. That's another important element that finance needs to understand and guide the teams through it. And finance is then oftentimes going to be involved in managing the cloud spend. And like I said, putting the right governance and the process and capabilities in place so that as you go to a pay-as-you-go model, you are managing that. HR is a critical partner in this. Like I said, this is a capability building. It will require retraining a lot of the workforce. It will require also recruiting new talent outside. So that partnership is going to be critical. And these are areas that HR has not necessarily done in the past. So they will also need to learn what are the types of profiles to look for, what are the new training sessions that are needed and whatnot. And vendor management is another important stakeholder because, like I mentioned at the beginning, it requires a different ecosystem than the company has likely worked with in the past. So new partners, new vendors, and new ways of engaging these vendors. new SLAs that you're going to work with them. So if procurement has traditionally just been about running the RFPs and getting to contract, they will also need to develop capabilities of true vendor management and partner management to work with this new ecosystem as the journey unfolds and as new needs arise also.
And Justin, what's the impact of a cloud transformation on technology, talent, and culture, and how the clients can handle it?
Yeah, it's pretty massive. The reality is, cloud's not magic, right? It's still infrastructure. There's a common joke that it's just your stuff running on someone else's computer, which is partially true. But the reality is, the way that we do business as IT organizations, and often the way that businesses functions, need to change in many unforeseen ways. So existing jobs, existing capabilities, things like database administration, software development, architecture, they all need to take place, but they all need to happen in a different way in order to best take advantage of the capabilities of cloud. And so that requires shifts and blending of existing job roles, job functions, and the incorporation of new methods, new technology, et cetera. And so in addition to that, there's tremendous demand for talent for cloud these days, since everyone's sort of experimenting or charging headlong towards it. And so it requires that organizations think differently about how they structure their teams, how they train their people, how they attract new talent, and how they partner with others in order to make sure that they're successfully enabling their organization. And all of this requires, top-down focus from the IT organization and even from the business side of the leadership equation to understand that things are going to have to change. We'll have to organize differently, and we'll have to think differently about how work flows through.
And can you give us an example of a cloud transformation where the cultural aspects and relationship between business and technology were key to success?
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about a travel and transportation client of ours, the classic story, and this is common across multiple industries, is that IT had really been sort of an order taker, sort of a service provider to the business on more of a request and respond sort of basis. So we need X number of widgets, and then the IT organization would provide that, and really more of a kind of throw things over the wall approach. Worked well in the 90s, I suppose, but in this new way of delivering things very rapidly and rapid experimentation, it requires that we be much closer. So in this case, by working through and performing a reset and really helping the business to realize that this is a two-part equation, strengthen the bonds between the technology organization and the delivery side or the business side, and ended up incorporating business leaders into the technology organization and architects and engineers into the business side, and really kind of shorten the feedback loops and increase the speed and the quality of the work that was being done.
And Leandro, what is public and private cloud, and how can clients extract most value from the multiple cloud services providers?
That's a great question, and one that oftentimes confuse, especially the business side of companies. Public cloud is usually referred to, or is referred to, when the infrastructure, so the data center, the servers that I talked about, is provided by a third party that's running that infrastructure in what we would call a multi-tenant kind of way. So the same infrastructure is being shared or being used by several different companies. So it's not exclusive to you. So it's provided by somebody else, managed by somebody else, and shared amongst other enterprise. That's usually referred to some of the hyperscalers like Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google GCP. As well as others in other geographies and other providers like IBM, Oracle, SAP, who also provide services in that manner. Not to be extensive here, not to be exhaustive in terms of the companies that I'm naming, and certainly not to bias towards one or the other. But that's what public cloud is at the end of the day. Private cloud is when an enterprise manage their own data center, their own servers, and use software to create an abstraction across those servers. So you have some of the benefits in terms of shifting workloads or reallocating some of your capacity to different workloads depending on your own internal variability. but you are still pre-purchasing, pre-allocating, predefining your capacity. And it does not have those more advanced services that are inherently available through the hyperscalers. For example, machine learning, artificial intelligence, those types of services, and even several others. For example, services around e-commerce, around voice recognition, things like that, that the hyperscalers are developing. Usually in a private cloud setup, you wouldn't have, certainly not the richness that you can get on a private setup. You will also hear the term hybrid cloud. You will also hear the term hybrid cloud, which is a model where part of your infrastructure will be on that public cloud and part of it is going to be on your own private cloud, privately managed. That's a model that we expect we're going to see for a foreseeable future for any enterprise with large complexity. And certainly a model that's going to be used as enterprises are shifting from a private only towards a eventually public only model. But it's a model where certain workloads that have higher affinity to public cloud, meaning higher resiliency required, more scalability, that needs some of those services that are not available internally, will run on the public cloud. And some of the ones that perhaps companies are either don't have as much of the affinity, for example, some of the legacy technology that's harder to migrate, or because the companies or the local regulation prevents them from moving to the public cloud, or at least they are not as clear on what it would take to move on a public cloud. So that's a model where you're using parts in the public and parts in the private, usually as an interim or at least as a state as companies move towards that public model.
And Justin, there are many different cloud services and tools being launched every day. How do companies can keep up with the technology that's really relevant?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest frustrations for organizations that are sort of new to cloud is keeping up with the rapid level of innovation that's happening in the space. So these organizations are massive and investing billions of dollars in research and development and delivery of new products and services into the cloud platforms and making them available. So really understanding which ones do I need to be focusing on and how do I need to think about those is a significant challenge. Now, one of the big benefits of making these kinds of transitions is that by divesting yourself of the need to perform an inordinate amount of engineering and architecture on underlying infrastructure services, you're now able to free up your architects, engineers, and other technology professionals to be more future focused and more, again, the closer relationship with the business. By leveraging that understanding, By leveraging that understanding, organizations are able to kind of project forward and utilize the automation capabilities to rapidly test, develop the right strategies and the right control frameworks around these services and make those available to their own organization. So it really is a combination of maintaining currency and focus on the differentiating capabilities of the cloud and how that is relevant to your organization.
Leandro, Justin, any final words for the clients engaging in the cloud transformation? Starting with you, Leandro.
Look, I think this can be somewhat scary to start. It can also feel like a shiny object where you can jump in without any caution. What I would encourage is don't be in either one of those modes. Don't be scared or too scared where you wouldn't try, and don't be too excited where you're going to jump in heads first. I think my advice is this is absolutely a technology that is transforming already the business world. If you look at just last year through the pandemic that all of us had to manage, companies that had already migrated to the cloud fared much better than those that did not. They were able to scale both up and down depending on where their demand varied. They were able to change their systems to respond to user demands, to changing user needs. For example, through more self-service, through more remote working conditions than those that, again, did not have it. So it's an extremely valuable technology. I think every company should consider, should figure out where it's going to create the most value, but also should be thoughtful, should seek the right counsel and advice on how to make the transition and approach it carefully and with a strategy that makes sense for each one of them. There is no one size fits all approach here.
I would just echo Leandro's sentiment there. It is a broad and complex topic, and it is certainly easy to get hung up in a lot of the analysis. It is extremely important that you have the right strategy and approach, but it's important that that strategy and approach enable quick action and fast iteration through the transformation cycle. So working in a small enough context that allows you to understand the business value at stake for your organization, the right cloud architectures to be used, the right technical constructs and services, what the impacts are to your overall operating model as an IT organization, how that affects the business. Again, how we secure and manage that from a risk perspective, and then ultimately, how am I going to work these changes through the organization, right? Build that momentum and build velocity. Those are really kind of the key elements to being successful in cloud transformations without suffering a lot of the same sort of drawbacks, stalls, or misses in terms of business value and desired outcomes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's go now to a few questions from the audience. The first question, Leandro, is for you. If cloud is a business initiative, how should we reimagine the role of IT units in CIOs to be effective in this initiative?
That's a very good question. And as I think we touched on some elements, Justin talked about the example of the company that had to really change the posture rather than being order takers and delivering certain widgets to one of really kind of partnering and developing with the business. I think that to add to that, also we've seen in the last 3 to 5 years some enterprise separating what would be what they would call a digital unit, or having a CDO, a chief digital officer, as a separate organization from the IT or the CIO, the chief information officer. We find it extremely hard for that model to work when you're talking about cloud, because cloud, if seen by the CIO, it becomes just an infrastructure replacement. If seen by the CDO, it becomes a way of bypassing the traditional IT and the legacy systems. And that then limits the surface of the impact that you can have with cloud. So I think one of the changes is you really need to think through, how is technology enabling the business? How are we digitizing the business? And how cloud then comes into that equation. So bringing digital IT and also the analytics, the data analytics capabilities together, not necessarily organizationally, but at least thinking about all of them in a combined way, along with the cyber capabilities, with a lot of companies have it separate often. Bringing all of that together, and then taking a product mindset in working with the business. What are the products that we're going to create together for the business that are going to have the fancy, exciting digital front end that's going to have the resiliency from being built and being able to interact with all of our core systems, for being able to have the right intelligence through the data analytics and the data we have, and do all of that in a safe way. So bringing all of those modalities together as, again, an integrated stack of capabilities that are being developed jointly with the business.
Justin, question for you. From your experience, can you talk about a client example where they exceeded their impact from the cloud initiative and what they did?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of one of our classic use cases, working with a large consumer packaged goods client. Initial forays into cloud, coming from a very well-established and long-held IT estate and way of doing business, decided to utilize cloud for a marketing website in response to a major marketing event. So kind of a classic cloud use case of rapidly the system of advertisement, just get the word out there, and wildly successful in a way not imagined before, led to additional sort of experimentation, taking a little bit bigger risks and moving into more of a collaborative and bi-directional interaction with their clients. Also successful, Fast forward about 5 years, the same organization that started out just toe dipping with marketing ultimately decides to move their entire IT estate to the cloud, inclusive of their mainframe systems, legacy data warehouse, everything, and entirely got out of the data center business. It's an example of how by overachieving on sort of the initial rounds through, you kind of start to reimagine the business and what's possible with cloud.
Leandro, in your perspective, what is the typical timeline to start seeing financial and business results from a cloud journey?
Another good question. Look, that answer really varies depending on what the company is doing. I think the example that Justin just gave, such an application can be developed and deployed in a couple of months, right? 2 to 3 months, and you're immediately delivering business impact. But we're not talking about migrating or converting everything that the company has to the cloud. That journey will definitely take longer. Some organizations will get to the state that they want to get to, or the amount of applications that they're willing to migrate at this point in a couple of years, a year and a half, between a year and a half and 3 years, I would say. Others that really decide to migrate and convert everything, that can easily be a 3 to 5 year journey to get to the end. But that's to get to the end. I think in order to get to the impact, we believe that if you set your targets on anything that's longer than 9 to 12 months, the business is going to move, they are going to lose focus. And that by itself is going to create issues. So the art is finding those use cases that you can actually deliver the impact, if not as quickly as the 2 to 3 months, like the example that Justin just gave, but like on the 6-month type of timeline, so that you can create some positive momentum within the organization, create excitement very much like the company that Justin described, to then iterate and build on those. If you try to do it all, the old strategy of the build and they will come tends to be too long of a journey and too much investment up front to really work on the long term. So that iterative, quicker impact, we find it to be much more effective.
Justin, what are the biggest risks in a cloud journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a common theme with the rest of the discussion so far, but really the biggest risks, the things that we've seen be most impactful in a negative sense to our clients' cloud journeys, either moving too fast or moving too slow, right? And so moving too fast, there's tremendous ability, there's tremendous power in the automation capability presented by cloud. That power, if not wielded properly, can lead to things like catastrophic data breaches and very embarrassing sort of loss of good faith from your customers, as well as real damages to people through the loss of data. In addition, cost overruns by not effectively controlling and understanding what you're doing can very rapidly, skyrocket costs if things aren't managed properly. On the other side of the equation, not moving fast enough or not understanding the deep and broad impacts can lead to stagnation within the organization, extreme dissatisfaction within the organization, and actually can cause a lot of attrition or at least strife and distraction that can have cross-cutting impacts across multiple kind of domains. So really understanding the breadth, the importance, ensuring that you are moving with speed, but not too much haste, and taking the right precautionary measures to control things as they move are really critical to mitigating those risks.
So, thank you very much, Justin. Leandro, muito obrigada. Obrigada a você que também nos acompanhou de casa, a todo mundo que mandou as perguntas, vocês ficaram aqui os últimos minutos com a gente. Muitíssimo obrigada. Para conhecer a agenda completa do McKinsey Talks, acesse mckinseytalks.com. Lá você pode assistir aos episódios anteriores e na segunda-feira o episódio de hoje vai estar também liberado lá. E vocês também encontram acesso para as versões em áudio disponíveis no Spotify. Muito obrigada pela companhia. Bom fim de semana e até a próxima. Tchau, tchau.